You felt it the moment someone looked at you like you were the answer, like you were the one person who could fix everything wrong in their world. And something in your chest, something old and deep and wired into your bones, responded. It said yes, it said finally. It said this is what I was built for. That feeling has a name. Researchers call it the hero instinct, and it is one of the most powerful forces inside the human mind. It is also one of the most exploited. Because while that instinct is real, while it comes from a genuine place of wanting to matter, and wanting to protect, and wanting to leave the world slightly better than you found it certain, people have figured out exactly how to weaponize it. They have figured out how to reach inside your chest, grab that wire, and pull, and once they start pulling, most people never even notice. This is not a story about villains in dark rooms plotting your destruction. This is a story about something quieter and more dangerous. It is a story about the people who learned, either through desperation or design, that making you feel needed is the fastest way to make you theirs. Let that sink in. Making you feel needed is the fastest way to make you theirs. Modern psychology spent decades studying what people want from relationships. Love, obviously, stability, excitement, but buried under all of those answers, deeper than most people dare to admit, is something simpler. People want to feel necessary. They want to feel like their existence changes things. Like if they disappeared, someone somewhere would feel the loss in a way that cannot be replaced. That is not weakness. That is humanity. That is the same impulse that built hospitals and raised children and pulled strangers from burning buildings. But it is also the same impulse that keeps people locked in relationships that drain them completely. The same impulse that makes someone give everything they have to a person who gives almost nothing back. The same impulse that turns a capable, intelligent, strong person into someone who cannot leave because leaving feels like abandonment. Manipulation does not always look like control. It does not always arrive wearing a mask. Sometimes it arrives wearing the face of someone who needs you, and that is where it gets dangerous. Think about the mechanics of what happens inside you when someone presents themselves as helpless in your presence. Your brain does not stay neutral. Something activates. A sense of purpose floods through you. Your attention narrows and focuses. You start solving their problem in your head before they have even finished explaining it. You lean in, you stay, you come back. This is not an accident when a manipulator does it. This is the technique. They call it positioning. And it works like this. The person identifies what you most want to be: protector, fixer, savior, counselor, provider. They study you, sometimes consciously, sometimes through pure instinct, and they figure out which version of hero lives inside you. Then they build a story that makes them the perfect person who needs exactly that version of you. You have never been loved correctly. They need someone patient, like you. They have been abandoned before. They need someone reliable, like you. The world has treated them brutally. They need someone strong, like you. Do you see it now? Every sentence is a mirror held up to reflect the hero you already wanted to be. They are not just asking for help. They are handing you an identity. An identity is more addictive than almost anything else on this planet. Once you have accepted the role, once you have stepped into the character of their protector or their savior, you are no longer just a person they are asking for help. You are now someone with a mission. And missions are hard to walk away from. Missions make you feel alive. Missions give your days shape and meaning. Missions make you stay long past the point where staying makes any rational sense. This is why the people closest to you, your friends, your family, even therapists, sometimes watch in confused horror as someone brilliant and self-aware remains trapped in a relationship that is clearly destroying them. From the outside, it looks like a simple choice: leave. The math is obvious. But from the inside, leaving does not feel like freedom. Leaving feels like failure. Leaving feels like abandoning someone in a burning building. And the manipulator knows this. The manipulator counts on this. Here is where it gets darker. The most skilled manipulators do not stay in the helpless position forever. Because a person who is always helpless eventually becomes exhausting even to the most devoted helper. So they rotate. They give you glimpses of the person they could be. Strong moments, funny moments, moments where they seem to finally be okay, where they seem to be healing, where they turn to you and say something that makes it all feel worth it. Those moments are not accidents either. Those moments are the reward cycle. And the reward cycle is what transforms a dynamic from unhealthy to impossible to escape. Psychologists study this pattern in the context of intermittent reinforcement. The basic science is brutal in its clarity. When a reward arrives inconsistently and unpredictably, the brain does not lose interest. It becomes obsessed. It doubles down. It waits. It tries harder. Because the brain is convinced that the pattern can be cracked, that if it just does the right thing at the right time, the reward will come again. This is the same mechanism behind gambling addiction. The slot machine does not pay out every time. If it did, you would play, collect your money, and leave. It is the uncertainty that keeps you standing there, feeding coins into the dark. And in the context of a relationship built on hero instinct exploitation, you are the gambler. The connection, the gratitude, the moment where they seem to finally be the person you saw potential in, that is the jackpot. And your whole nervous system is organized around chasing it. They want you invested. They want you too deep to walk away. They want you to have given too much to consider cutting your losses. There is a version of this that plays out in romantic relationships. There is a version that plays out in friendships. There is a version that plays out in professional dynamics and family structures and online communities. The face changes. The core mechanics do not. The friend who always has a crisis, not sometimes, always and somehow, every crisis lands at the moment when you are finally starting to focus on your own life, your promotion, your new relationship, your first real stretch of peace, and then the phone rings, and the crisis arrives, and you set down your life again because that is what people like you do. People like you do not abandon someone in their darkest moment. That sentence right there. People like you. That is the cage. Because somewhere along the line, your identity got fused to your role as the helper. And now to refuse the help is to betray who you are. The manipulator did not need to force you to stay. They helped you build a version of yourself that could not leave. This is elegant in the coldest possible sense of that word. It is a form of control that leaves no bruises. It is a form of dependency that the trapped person often defends loudly and passionately. Because from inside, the dynamic, it does not feel like a trap. It feels like love. It feels like loyalty. It feels like purpose. And purpose is the thing modern life is most desperate for. That is not a coincidence. Because we are living in a world that is profoundly disconnected. The structures that used to give people automatic roles, community, religion, extended family, trades passed from parent to child, have largely dissolved. People are more free than any generation in human history, and more lost than most would admit. That is not a small thing to offer someone who has been quietly starving for purpose. That is everything. And so they take it. Of course, they take it. A drowning person does not interrogate the rope. They grab it. The problem is that sometimes the rope is attached to something that wants to pull you under with it. You have to understand what you are actually giving when you give yourself over to this role completely. You are not just giving time. You are giving access to your decision-making, to your nervous system, to your sense of reality. Because when you are deep enough in the caretaker role with someone who is using that role against you, you start outsourcing your perception to them. They become the authority on what is real, what is fair, what is too much, what is not enough. And that is when the real damage happens. Because now they can rewrite things. They can tell you that your concerns are overreactions, that your boundaries are cruelty, that your exhaustion is selfishness. And you will consider it. You will actually sit with those accusations and try to figure out if they are right. Because you have already accepted that they are the fragile one and you are the strong one. And strong people do not get to be tired. Strong people do not get to be hurt. Strong people absorb, you absorb, and absorb, and absorb. Until one day something in you breaks so quietly that no one even hears it happen. Not even you. And then the manipulator, faced with a version of you that is finally too depleted to perform, does not thank you for everything you sacrificed. They escalate. They accuse you of changing, of becoming cold, of abandoning them, because the hero instinct they exploited was their primary resource, and resources that stop flowing create panic in those who depend on them. This is usually the moment when people finally see it, when the exhausted, broken version of themselves stands in the rubble of 3 years, or 5 years, or 15 years, and thinks, wait, what happened here? What happened was simple and ancient and devastating. You were seen, not fully, not honestly, but you were seen in the specific way that mattered most to you. The part of you that wanted to matter was recognized and activated and then quietly imprisoned inside a role it could not leave. Knowing this does not make it your fault. That needs to be said clearly because the human brain, when confronted with the evidence of having been manipulated, often turns the shame inward. It decides that being manipulated means being stupid, being weak, being naive. But that is not what it means. It means you had something real, something worth exploiting. You had genuine care, genuine strength, genuine desire to make a difference in someone's life. Those are not flaws. Those are the best parts of a person. And the fact that someone used them against you says everything about them and nothing fundamental about you. But here is the part that matters now. Standing on the other side of that recognition. The hero instinct itself is not the problem. The problem is operating it without consciousness, without boundaries, without the ability to ask a question that most helpers never think to ask. Who is this actually serving? Because there is a version of helping that is pure, that costs you something real but gives something real in return, that builds the other person without diminishing you. That creates genuine change and genuine growth and eventually, if the relationship is honest, reduces the need for help rather than increasing it. That is the kind of helping that is worth everything. And then there is the version that drains in one direction and never stops, where the crisis never resolves, where the growth never comes, where you give more and they need more and the gap between what you provide and what they are willing to do for themselves never closes. That version is not helping. That version is enabling. And at the deepest level, it is not even about them. It is about you, about your need to be needed, about the discomfort you feel when someone you care for does not need you anymore. This is the question that cuts. Do you actually want them to get better, or do you want them to need you forever? For most people who have been in these dynamics, the answer is genuinely both. And the two desires exist in a tension that the manipulator, intentionally or not, exploits constantly. Because if they actually healed, actually became independent, actually built a life that did not require your constant presence and rescue, who would you be in relation to them? What would be the shape of your role? That uncertainty is its own trap. Recovery from this kind of dynamic is not just about leaving the relationship. It is about doing the harder work of examining what the relationship was doing for you, what hunger it was feeding, what fear it was quieting. Because if you do not do that work, you will find the same dynamic again. Different face, same structure, a different person standing at the center of their own disaster, hand extended eyes, saying, "You are the one who can fix this." And that pull will feel exactly the same. Because it is exactly the same. The bait did not change. Only your awareness of it did. Awareness is where this ends and where something better begins. Because the goal is not to become someone who does not help. The goal is not to build walls so high that nothing real can get through. Cynicism is not the cure for having been too open. Cynicism is just a different kind of wound. One that protects you from pain by also protecting you from connection, from meaning, from the actual experience of being alive with other people. The goal is discernment. The goal is to keep the instinct, but add the question, to feel the pull of someone need, and then pause long enough to ask, is this real need or performed need? Is this a temporary crisis or a permanent state? Is this person doing anything for themselves, or am I the only engine in this equation? Does helping them help them, or does it only help the dynamic continue? Those questions feel cold when you first start asking them. They feel like betrayal. They feel like what a selfish person would do, instead of just loving someone without conditions. But they are not cold. They are honest. And honest love, love that sees clearly and chooses deliberately, is so much more powerful than love that is just compulsive responding to distress signals. You are allowed to be a hero. You are allowed to care deeply and show up powerfully and make yourself available to the people who genuinely need you. You are allowed to use that instinct that lives in your chest, the one that says, I can help, I can fix this, I can be the person who makes a difference. Just do it with your eyes open. Because the world is full of people who need genuine help, real help. The kind where your presence and your effort and your care actually moves something forward. Those people deserve everything you have to give. And you deserve to give it to people who are actually trying to meet you somewhere in the middle. The manipulator offers you a role. The genuine connection offers you a relationship. One is a performance that costs you yourself. The other is a partnership that builds you both. You have been wired to help. That is not a malfunction. That is the most human thing about you. Do not let someone use it to make you disappear.